Welcome to this special episode of Law and Society in Taiwan. And today is dedicated to the topic of animal welfare, which is a topic very close to my heart. And we have a special guest joining us today here, Mr. Wu Hong. He looks like a very modest man, but actually he is very, very accomplished and very important, because he actually is the founder of the animal rights movement in Taiwan. He's the one who founded EAST. So EAST is the Environmental and Animal Society of Taiwan, established in 1999, 2000. Yeah, you are the founder.
Yes.
And have this excellent idea, because EAST is really doing something. Yeah, you read about them in a newspaper. The laws that are being revised is being promoted by EAST. Yeah, so they are really making a huge change and having a huge impact in Taiwan, and not only in Taiwan. And you are now also the executive director. The chief executive director of EAST. So we are so glad to have him here with us today to talk about this very important topic of animal welfare. And you know, as lawyers, we always care about the law, and the most important law in Taiwan is the Constitution. Yeah, everything that's most important, that's protected by the Constitution. Let's ask the fundamental question: are animals protected by the Constitution? Are they mentioned at all? And if we take a look at the Constitution, we don't find the word animal, right? It doesn't mention
even a single word. There's
not
no
a single word mentions the word animal. Yeah, not a single word. But at least what we can find is in the additional articles of the Constitution. You know, the Constitution has been amended, and that's why we have the additional articles. And in Article 10, it says, environmental and ecological protection shall be given equal consideration with economic and technological development. So at least the Constitution talks about the environment, and we have to protect the ecology, and it is equally important, just like the economy and the technological development. Yeah?
So somehow wildlife.
So wildlife would be included, indirectly, and this is also why we have the Sustainable Development Principle in Taiwan. Yeah? So this is to enshrine the principle of sustainable development in Taiwan, but it does not mention animals expressly. So if we compare this with other countries, Germany, for example, in the German constitution, which is called the Grundgesetz, yeah, or in the English translation, the Basic Law, Article 20 says, mindful also of its responsibility towards future generations, the state shall protect the natural foundations of life and animals by legislation and in accordance with law and justice, by executive and judicial action, all within the framework of the constitutional order. So in the German constitution, it says expressly, the state shall protect the animals.
So
Yeah,
that is
and
very much, it's a big difference.
this is a big difference, yeah, and just the two words, and animals, were included later in the German constitution. That's why we have these words now in the constitution.
Yeah, compared to our constitutions, we only mention environment and ecology system.
Yeah.
So, and only wildlife is relevant
Right,
to
yeah.
our constitution.
So if we want to take the German constitution as a model, right, actually it would be very simple, right? We could
Yes.
just include the two words,
just and
and animals.
in the constitution.
Yeah, it would then say environmental, ecological protection, and animal protection, animal welfare,
Right.
yeah, shall be given equal consideration. So it would be very easy. It would just we would just have to include two words, yeah. But we know there are different proposals, yeah. And then if we compare it with the EU, the European Union, in the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, we have Article 3, where it also mentions in formulating and implementing the Union's agriculture, fisheries, transport, internal market, research and technological development and space policies, the Union and the Member States shall means must. Since animals are sentient beings, pay full regard to the welfare requirements of animals, while respecting the legislative or administrative provisions and customs of the Member States, relating in particular to religious rights, cultural traditions and regional heritage. So according to Article 13 TFEU, which also is a kind of constitutional law, it has the highest rank in the EU legal order.
Foundational
Yeah.
for the EU.
It also says, yeah, that the European Union and also the individual member states must, yeah, pay full regard to the welfare requirements of animals. And here we also have the definition, yeah, a definition that animals are sentient beings. So this is in the TFEU treaty itself, at the highest level of EU law.
The Lisbon Treaty.
To a mandate, yeah, a legal mandate, a constitutional mandate to at least take into consideration the animals. Yeah, we have to balance the different interests. Yeah, and one of the very, very important interests are those of the animals. So now we can of course ask, why is it necessary to include the animal protection in the constitution? As I just mentioned, it's important so we can balance the various interests, so that animal welfare has a chance to be taken care of and to win against other conflicting interests. Yeah, there is no 100% guarantee, right, that animal welfare has the first priority.
Or not necessarily win.
But it's
just
not a
equal
necessary win,
consideration,
but
yeah.
at least we have to take it into account,
Right.
yeah, and at least we have to put this into the constitution. And another good argument, I think, is that in Taiwan, I think there is a strong tendency that the law actually delegates to the executive. And say, okay, the laws are very general, and then the executive authorities, such as the Council of Agriculture in Taiwan, or the other agencies, ministries, right? They can make the more specific rules and regulations.
Right.
But this means that the law is actually authorizing, empowering the executive, right? And then we would depend more on the executive. And if we don't want to have this kind of reliance or dependence, it would be important to directly enshrine animal welfare in the law itself,
Especially for the livestock industry.
for the livestock in
Yeah.
particular.
Of course, for the government, they need to develop the livestock industry. However, if there is consideration of animal or animal welfare in our constitutions, then the policy of the industry development, you should put the welfare of those farmers into the consideration. industry need to develop different, more animal-friendly production systems.
Right, yes. And I think it would be more democratic. We know the legislators, they are directly elected by the people, and so they are a democratic symbol, right? And so if we can put the animal protection directly into the law, it would have more democratic weight, right? Rather than deferring to the executive authorities. And so East has proposed, right? You have been at the forefront of proposing these constitutional amendments. And so far there have been 2 public hearings, right? Convoked by the Constitutional Amendment Committee. And on the agenda, there were 8. They actually excluded the proposals to include the animal welfare. Unfortunately,
yes, it's pity. Because I think the government and all the parties, they think because we have very high threshold to pass the amendment of our constitutions, so they think this is the only opportunity this time to have the amendment for the age 18 years old. You have the right to vote. So because many younger generations support this amendment, if this amendment does not pass the threshold, the referendum, then it would be very difficult for any other other amendments.
So we have a special time now in Taiwan because the legislators have just been promoting, right, to lower the voting age for young people, so that the young people can vote at the age of 18. And this is a chance also to get the animal welfare into the constitution at the same time, right? Because we don't have the chance to change the constitution every day, right? So that's why it's a very important moment now in Taiwan to have this chance to change the constitution. And here you can see there is the picture, a photo, right? Where the animal activists stand in front of the legislature and protesting because their proposals have not been included in the agenda of the discussions in the
we are
legislature.
appealing the legislators to consider the animal welfare or animal protection in our constitution.
Right, Okay, now let's take a look at the definition of animals. And if we take a look at the civil code in Taiwan, we have the distinction between persons and things. And when it talks about things, then here it mentions in Article 69, it mentions the word animals. So obviously, animals are treated as things in Taiwan. They are treated
not a living beings, not a sentient beings.
Not as living beings, just in the same category as things, according to the civil code. If we compare this again with Germany, the German civil code, BGB, it says there they also have the distinction between persons and things. But when it comes to the things, it says expressly things and animals. So there is a distinction between things and animals. And in section 90A, it defines animals and says animals are not things. So even though they are somehow
in
similar,
between person
in
and
between
things.
persons and things, but they have a special category for the animals, and they are protected by special statutes. And if we compare this with the TFEU, as I already mentioned, right, in Article 13, it also says animals are sentient beings. And sentient means to have feelings, right? The animals, they feel hunger, thirst, they feel fear, they have emotions just like us humans. So in this regard, they are not so different. And I think it's very important to acknowledge this, right? That animals are just different from things. You can't just throw them around, right? They have brains, right? They have nerves, they feel pain, they suffer, so we have to treat them with respect.
In fact, in Taiwan, there's some local discourse,
discussions.
District court.
District courts.
They have the ruling different some verdicts and saying animals are not things.
excellent.
but
Yeah.
only very few.
We have a few judgments
Right.
by the district court.
Yes, yes.
District court that do mention that the animals are
Not things.
not things. Yeah, so this is very
This
special.
is very beginning.
The
just
very beginning, yeah.
However, our civil code still
Yeah.
using the animals are still considered only things.
So at least we have some intelligent judges in Taiwan, yeah, who realize this fact. Yeah, it's a scientific fact. Okay, now there is of course many other laws that talk about animals, and the most important one is the Animal Protection Act of 1998. So let's take a closer look here at the provisions. In Article 3, it defines the term animals and says animals are dogs, cats, any vertebrates reared or tended by humans for economic value, laboratory use, pet or other purposes. So dogs and cats, no question, they are protected by the Animal Protection Act. Even if they are strays, so stray dogs and cats,
Right,
they should also be protected by this law. And what about fish?
Fish is considered vertebrate.
Vertebrate. So vertebrate means to have a backbone, and fish have backbone, so they are vertebrates. So this means they should also be protected.
Most people do not consider fish as a vertebrate. They don't consider it is protected by law as well.
But it should, right?
It should
According to this legal definition, yeah. I mean, they also have the addition. It says reared or tended by humans. So if the fish are
farmed
it's a
or
fish farm, then
transported or
yes.
sold or on the market,
They
it should be.
should
You should not treat them badly.
they should fall within this scope. Yeah. Unfortunately, often this is not the case. Yeah. When we go to the market. And then the other animals that are covered, of course, economic animals. That are produced for meat and milk, right? As we saw today, the chicken, the cows, the sheep, and then we have the laboratory animals, yeah, the mice, the rabbits that are used in the laboratories, and then we have the pets. So no question that they fall under the scope. Wildlife is not covered.
We have another law. It's called,
we have a different law.
Yeah,
you have a special
wildlife
law.
conservation law.
Yeah.
However, the conservation law doesn't really consider the welfare of the individual animals. They just consider their group sustainability of certain species.
Right.
So it's a different angle.
To preserve the wildlife, but they don't really care about the individual
Suffering,
animals.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then Article 5 talks about the obligations of an owner and says we have to provide the food and the good, safe living environment. And very important, the animal must have the freedom to move, to stretch, to leave the cage, to go outdoors, and to prevent harassment, abuse, or injury. And Article 6 more generally says one must not harass, abuse, or injure any animal. So we have a general clause here that prohibits the abuse of animals, even if you're not the owner. Yeah. But here at the right-hand side, we see there is a special practice in Taiwan, actually from the old times, but it's still practiced sometimes in Taiwan, yeah, where the pigs are raised and force-feeded so that they will become as fat as possible, yeah, several hundred kilograms heavy.
The heaviest, the winner of the goal.
And then the winner gets a prize. Yeah, and why? To worship God, they say. This is the divine God or the pigs of God. To please God, this pig will then be sacrificed in a very cruel way. We can see it on the next picture. Just alive, without any stunning, without any form of stunning.
So they are being bled with full consciousness.
they are fully conscious, and then they just cut the throat, the inner throat of the pig, yeah,
And then the bleeding
and let them bleed out slowly. And Article 10 says one must not do to any animal force feeding, but this is what's happening with these pigs. They are being force fed, yeah, and then they should not be tied. This is what's happening. They are being tied, and then they should not be cut or bled without humanely rendering them unconscious first. But this is what's happening. So there is a discussion, right? You have had the discussions, right, with the Council of Agriculture to end this kind of practice. And I think the main argument of the Council of Agriculture, the ministry in Taiwan, is we have to respect the tradition. This is the religion of some people,
Yeah.
the heritage,
Or
their
culture.
and so it's they don't want to really implement and enforce the law here, but they want to admonish the people. Yeah.
Yeah, according to the judiciary, the law professors in National Taiwan University, Professor Lee, he mentioned that although our constitution protects our religion, but it protects belief. However, the behavior derived from your belief is still subject to the law, because your behavior or
Right.
the result may be harm to other people,
Right.
maybe harm to other animals or environment.
Yes.
Those behavior is still subject to the law
Right.
regulation.
Yeah, so we respect the law, respects the religion
belief.
in principle, yeah, but the behavior of the people, of course, still has to conform to the general laws,
Right.
right? You cannot have religion as an excuse and say, okay, now I'm going to kill somebody because it's my religion, right? You still have to conform to the norms, right, and respect other lives, right, other lives.
And that is protected by our law.
And this is protected by the law. Let's move on to Article 15. Says one shall avoid using live animals for scientific application. When it cannot be avoided, one shall do so with the least number of animals and in a way inflicting the least pain or harm. So here we are now talking about the animals that are used for scientific purposes in the labs, in the laboratories. Animal testing. So this is now also a big issue now, right? And if we really have to do animal testing, there are at least three principles we have to respect. The three principles are called replace. Replace how? How can we replace the animals? Well, we now have the modern methods using the human cell cultures or computer modeling human tissues, and in the end, the volunteers. So there are now many very progressive scientific methods to do some experiments where we don't really need the animals.
Especially for the toxicology test.
Toxicology tests.
Yeah, because
yes.
between human beings and other animals, some toxicity can be tested or defined or detected from the animals, but cannot be detected from the human beings. And some toxicity is bad to the human beings, but not necessarily has some effect on the animals.
Right.
So that is the big difference between the species. It's dangerous.
Yeah, so there is a difference between how humans react and how animals react, right?
Might be different.
Right, yeah. And so we now have huge data about human reactions, right? And if we can use this kind of human data, it would be more efficient, and more efficient and more effective, yeah, to test whether a chemical is safe for humans or not. So this is an area where we don't really need the animals, yeah, and you have achieved a big progress in this regard. The other R means to reduce. Of course, we want to reduce the number of animals, and then to refine means to minimize the pain and the suffering of the animals and to improve their welfare, even when we are doing this kind of animal testing. The EU here has prohibited animal testing for cosmetic products. And we also have achieved a change in the law
Right,
in
in the law,
Taiwan
yes.
a few years ago. So also in Taiwan, the cosmetic products must not be subject to animal testing anymore. Yeah, so also in Taiwan, this has been a milestone achievement. And in terms of sanctions, so there are the different sanctions and punishments, and the most severe sanction that I could find in the Animal Protection Act is jail. You can be jailed for up to 5 years.
Imprisonment.
And imprisonment, yes, and a fine of 5 million Taiwan dollars.
But that is for the very
for
severe,
the very
severe behavior.
Yes, yeah. And sometimes under certain circumstances, the name of the person can be published. Now we talk about a practical case. So we have talked about the law, and now we want to take a look at a case study about the duck eggs. So duck eggs are a beloved specialty in Taiwan. People love to eat them either as pure or in cakes, in various forms of moon cakes and other cakes. And this is big business. Yeah, so the local duck egg industry here exports also to other countries, to the United States, Canada, Singapore, Japan, and other countries. But the problem is what? The problem is that some entrepreneurs, they want to make more profit, and for this purpose they put the ducks into their battery cages. So the battery cages are the cages that are very, very tight and very narrow and made of metal, where the ducks cannot move. And this is very, very bad for their health, because the feet of the duck, they get the infection, right? They cannot really sit down. They have to stand on the wire floors all the time, so they get the food injuries, and there is no water. And the ducks, they really need water, so they are different from the chicken.
Waterfowl.
They are waterfowl. They love water, and they cannot live without water. Yeah, but in these battery cages there is no water, which means the ducks cannot clean themselves, and then they are very prone to infections. Yeah, they get the infections. They cannot move, which means that the bones will easily break or bristle, and so this causes a very high mortality rate, which is 2 to 5 times higher than the cage-free ducks. So this is the very sad fate of about 20% of the ducks in Taiwan that lay eggs. So it's not all of them, but about 20% of the ducks in Taiwan. And now,
but the good news is that the government now prohibits
yes,
from building new cage system for the duck.
this is what I will mention on my
I
next
see.
slide. Yes.
Okay.
So the Taiwan Food and Drug Administration in 2018 applied to the European Commission to export these eggs from Taiwan to the EU market. The EU market is a big market. But what happened then? The Eurogroup for Animals, which represents 70 animal protection organizations in the EU from 25 EU member states, they published an article warning of the threats and drawing attention to the bad situation, the living conditions of these ducks, which is not only bad for the ducks but also for the consumers. Yeah, we know when the ducks have these kind of infections, then the eggs they produce are also
You might use the medicine to prevent
yes,
some disease.
not so healthy for the consumers. Yeah, so the Eurogroup for Animals here has been campaigning and also informing the European Commission about this fact. And the big policy now that the EU is promoting is called From Farm to Fork strategy, which is part of the European Green Deal. So the EU now wants to go green, they want to go healthy, and they want to make sure that everything is transparent in the food chain, right? So we want to know when I eat where does this food come from? From which farm? And therefore, this is called farm to fork strategy. Yeah, it has to be transparent. And therefore, in this context, the EU is now reviewing and revising the animal welfare laws of the EU. And many citizens of the EU, they care a lot about animal welfare. So there was a big petition called the European Citizens Initiative End the Cage Age. End the cage age. No more cages. We don't want to cage our animals. Let them go free. Let them out of the cage. And you can guess what was the reaction, the response of the EU. It was positive. Yeah, the European Commission issued a positive statement in July 2021 and said, yes, we agree and we are committed now to prohibit the use of cages. We want to raise the animal welfare levels not only in the EU but also in third countries. It cannot be that we have the strict standards in the EU but we still let the people import. This does not make sense, right? So the EU now is pushing for more fairness in this regard. And so we can predict or expect, right, that in the future, also in Taiwan, right, if we want to export these kinds of products, we should conform with the high EU standards, right? Otherwise, we will be confronted with some difficulties. And maybe that was the reason why also in 2021 there were some big changes in Taiwan. So the Council of Agriculture revised its guidelines for the hens and basically required the cages to improve, to enrich. Yeah, so if you still really have to use the cage, it has to be enriched, but also at the same time pushing the people to invest in cage-free systems. So this happened in April 2021, and then a few months later, in September 2021, another new regulation was issued by the Council of Agriculture, and that now requires that on each egg, it has to be identified where the housing system, yeah, where the egg comes from. Is it from organic farm? Is it a free-range farm? Is it from a barn? Or is it from an enriched cage? Or is it the conventional battery cage? So this is also an important step for the consumer to know exactly where does my egg come from what kind of farm.
What kind of a production system?
What kind of animal welfare system, yes. And the best news is now to come, right? This is what you mentioned. December 2021, the law itself was revised. So not only the regulation of the executive, but the law itself that bans the new battery cages. So in the future, no more new battery cages.
For ducks, for egg duck.
The ducks, yeah. For the ducks only.
For the ducks only.
Only for the ducks, yeah. For the other farm animals, it's still possible to have the cages, so but at least for the ducks. Still
a lot of work to do.
There's still a lot of work to do, but at least there is some progress, yeah. And here you can see the code, right? In the future, we can see where does this egg come from, yeah, and from what kind of housing system. And this is your certificate, right? The certificate that is issued by East, and for cows, for the dairy cows, and the other one is for the hens.
Right.
Yeah? So you audit these farms, and then you issue this kind of certificate.
Yeah, on the right-hand side is the cage-free alliance. They are all egg farms, only with free-range farms or farm systems. We don't accept the enriched cage system because the enriched cage is still the cage. Although the space a little bit more, only about 20% larger than A4 size paper.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make too much difference. And however, we later developed the animal welfare certificate scheme that were including the egg in the future. So they were only merged to only one scheme. So far we have two different systems, but will be merged into one.
Will be merged
Yeah,
to one.
so they will be called animal welfare certifications. So any products with this label will be audited by us. In the future, we'll have a third party to do the auditing because we issue the standard and then we would like to have a third party.
Independent
Party, to do the auditing.
Yeah. I was so happy to discover this label in the supermarket. This is new, right? You introduced it only a few years ago.
Last year.
Last year only, yes. Yeah. I was always looking. Or having a bad conscience sometimes. Buying those milk. And knowing how the cattle are being treated. And then one day I discovered this certificate, and then now I only buy this. Certified milk.
We need consumers to support the scheme.
So the consumers really, it's up to each one of us. Never underestimate your power. The power lies with us also. What we buy and what we consume. So this brings us to the end of this presentation. It's really one health, right? So here you can see the cycle. When the humans treat animals well, if we treat the environment well, it will be good for the food that the humans eat in the end. And so it's really a cycle. If we humans do good, the good will come back to us. If we treat the animals and also the environment in a bad way, this is going to be bad for the product, for the meat, and it will have a bad repercussions on the people. So in the end, there should not be too much conflict of interest because it's after all one interest.
It's one health.
It's one health.
I think there's one planet, one Earth, right, and one health. And if you consider the health, it means psychological health, mental health, and the behavioral health. So actually, there's quite a few organizations, international and academics trying to promote not only one health but also one welfare.
One welfare.
Welfare is good for humans, good for animals, and good for the environment.
Yes, so we are all one big family, and the animals are also our families. So let me conclude for this course today. Law is often a reflection of society, right? When the society changes, then the law will also change. Although it might take some time, so the law of course is lagging behind. It might take some time to change the law, but it changes slowly, step by step. And I think the way how we treat animals really says a lot about who we are. So let's ask ourselves, what kind of persons are we? What kind of society are we, right? Do we only care about money, or are we caring and loving people and a society that cares about others as well?
And do care. You are buying. You are voting the animal welfare by your buying when you eat. When you eat.
Each time you buy, each time you eat, it's like voting. Either you vote for the animals, or you vote for some greedy enterprises.
You vote for your future.
You vote for your own future. Let's vote what's good for all of us, right? In total, there are 4 buildings. types of chicken here, and this is the number of chickens. Yeah, so we have close to 1,000 chickens in this building, and their age is about 80 weeks, so about 1.5 years old. And they lay each day 730 eggs, so it's about one egg every one or every other day. So we go in now. Yeah, we want to take a close look at the chicken. Okay, let's go. This is the place where the chicken go by themselves when they lay the eggs. And this is the place where they sleep. So they sleep by standing. They don't have to lay down. They just stand there and maybe hide their heads under their wings. But this is the place where they sleep. And here you can see a male chick. So when they're still young, it's hard to tell whether they're male or female. And when they become older, and we know now it's a male one, then they will be separated. So I just asked the owner, what are the chickens saying? And they are saying, welcome, welcome, we're so happy you're here. So they're welcoming us.
They are not afraid of us
They are not afraid of people. They are not afraid
because they know we won't hurt them.
because they know we won't hurt them. They know we are friendly people. So I just asked the owner, do the chickens sometimes get angry? And he said, well, sometimes they are curious, and then they would peck at the boots. Yeah, but in principle, they are very friendly animals. So they know you.
Yeah,
Because you feed them. So the food they get is completely natural.
Yeah.
It's completely natural. No chemicals. And the male was just making some noise.
Yeah, there. Yeah, sand and their menu mix. Yeah，他们就是在那个做沙浴，用沙子做干洗澡。对，不用，他们反而很怕水，太多水的话，他们反而会不舒服或生病。
So the chicken here, they don't need water. They clean themselves using the soil. Yeah, and they're actually afraid of water. So that's the place where they take a bath using the soil, not water. So this is different from the ducks. The ducks, they need water. Yeah, but the chicken, they don't need the water. Look at this. This is when they drink the water. So to drink the water, the height of that installation has to be adjusted. So here you have the explanation that when the chicken are still very young, it's very low, and then when the chicken is 6 weeks or more, you have to raise the height. In the back is open, so the chicken can always go outside if they like. And when they go outside, you see they also prefer the shade because it's quite hot today. Yeah, and the others here inside, they're here voluntarily. Yeah, so they are really not caged. Yeah, but they can really go outside anytime they like. qualify as a free-range farm, the access to the outdoor space has to be 24 hours a day. Yeah, so it's 24 hours a day open the door.
大概
from Europe. The egg was imported from Europe, and then the egg, and then the chicken was born in Taiwan, and then this chicken in Taiwan, they had the other children, and we see them now here. Yeah, so these chicken here are actually born in Taiwan, but their ancestors came from Europe. See how happy they are? The grass they eat.
They know there are very lot of nutrition in there.
There's a lot of nutrition. Yeah, the chicken are smart. They know that the grass, the fresh leaves are very healthy and nutritious. Yeah, so they love it. Okay, 那还要去哪里呢？
然后主要可能会在说 about animal welfare. We need to plant the trees in the outdoor space.
You have to plant the trees.
Yeah, to let the chickens to avoid the enemy,
Ah.
about eagles or wild animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the trees here, the owner planted with purpose. Yeah, it's not by accident, but they have a special purpose, namely to give the chicken a feeling of security, right? Yeah, so they are protected against all kinds of dangers. Yeah, so the trees here also play an important role on this free-range farm. And those sleeping, they're just enjoying the sun. Yeah. Enjoying really the freedom here. Yeah. So, and what made you make the decision to open a free-range farm, different from your father?
Because from them you can see they are very happy. Yeah. If they are not in a factory cage, they can do what they want. Yeah. About stretch
Stretch, the wings,
wings, running,
run around.
yeah, and
Yeah.
eat what they want, drink what they want.
So when you were young, you grew up at your father's farm. Did you see those chickens in the battery cage?
Yeah, yeah,
You saw
sure,
them.
yeah.
So you really can tell the difference. Yeah. And so that was your own decision. That your own decision, or
Yeah, the
somebody
main
told you?
decision to let me do the free
The
range.
free range. What about the eggs? Where do you sell the eggs? It's all online,
Online and then the store,
and also with some stores you
Yeah.
cooperate with
and
the
then
stores,
some department store.
department stores. Yeah. And how much does an egg cost? What's the price? It's
About 10 to 13.
10 to 13 Taiwan
Yeah,
dollars.
yeah.
So of course it's a little bit more expensive
Yeah.
than the normal eggs. Yeah. But I think it's really worth
But
it.
it's
Yeah.
worth it.
It's really worth the value. Yeah. And can we also buy directly here at the farm?
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
I'll get some.
Sure.
Yeah. I'll get some on this occasion. 那我想要抱一个。
找一只比较
The chicken that is calm. Yeah, so he says each chicken has its own personality. The owner knows each chicken is different, each chicken is special. fresher. And it's actually quite clean. So each egg really is a wonder. I find each egg is a little miracle, right? It's so round and just perfect. The eggs will be evaluated, yeah, and then put into 3 different groups. The brown chicken, they lay the brown eggs, and the white chicken, they lay the white eggs. Yeah. In terms of nutrition, it's about the same. So it's just the different breeds. So here the chicken are taking a dust bath. So they like to use the soil. They use the soil to remove the dirt and the parasites. If the chicken live in a battery cage, it would not be possible to do this kind of natural behavior, and then we would have to use antibiotica to remove the parasites. Yeah, so this here is a natural way, yeah, to keep the chicken clean. So that's so interesting to learn. The hen there on the highest. The most important one sits on the top, and the other one sits downstairs. And during night, some of them even take turns protecting the others. They watch out for the danger. So they are really intelligent, right? We wouldn't know this as a normal people, but when you really know these animals, you will discover they are not so different from us. So the place where they go to lay the egg offers them some privacy, and chicken have the natural instinct when they want to lay an egg, they need some privacy. That's why they go in that place by themselves. And in a battery cage, this would not be possible. In a battery cage, there is no privacy. 730 pieces eggs per day. This is quite efficient. It's about 70% efficiency. Yeah? And I guess it's also a result because they're happy, right?
They're happy, they're healthy.
Healthy, and then it comes
Psychologically,
natural.
they are healthy.
Mental health, yeah, all this is important, yeah, for the production rate also. Does it pay off to run this kind of free-range farm, or is it economically difficult to make profit?
To us, we have already 20 to 30 years of experience about this company.
So this company is already 20 to 30 years old,
Yeah.
so there is quite some experience and tradition and history, and that's why you keep going.
Yeah,
You keep going,
We
yeah.
have a lot of customers.
You have many customers, yeah.
From
Established customers, yeah. So they have an established customer base, yeah. So they know your eggs are good quality, so the customers just keep buying from you, right?
Of course, we need to enhance our price.
You have to enhance. Sometimes you have to increase the price.
Yeah,
You have
increase
to
our
adapt.
price.
Of course, yeah. Taking care of this is not easy, yeah.
But as long as the customer support.
As long as the customer support,
Yeah.
okay? Did you hear this? Yeah, keep supporting, yeah. And I'm going to buy many today.
I think it's
supporting, yeah.
economically viable.
Yeah. It's economically viable, yeah. So do you live from this farm, or do you do some other business also?
Another job is to promote the organic vegetables.
Vegetables.
Vegetables. So,
Yeah.
so you also sell the
yeah.
organic vegetables.
Yeah,
You grow and sell here?
No.
We have a group.
You have a group.
Yeah, we have lots of farmers.
Okay, yeah. So Mr. Lin also promotes the organic vegetable. So he is also a member of a group that sells organic vegetable. Yeah.
Grow and
I
sell.
think it's really a living with quality.
Yeah.
Quality.
And natural.
Yeah. So finally, I have some three questions for our special guest. Today it's a big honor to have Mr. Wu Hong here with us, who really has been fighting for animal welfare in Taiwan and made a big change. Yeah. So your work requires a lot of social interaction and communication with all kinds of people, right? Consumer, business entrepreneurs, government authorities. How do people normally respond in Taiwan? Is there a growing understanding and support for the important work you do?
Well, I think from the very beginning, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when people hear about animal protection, they are quite, they think we are look like a very stranger to them. It's a big surprise. Example of farm animals, if we say human slaughter, they will say these animals are being killed finally. Anyway, why do you say we should do humanely? We are eating them anyway. So humane method of human slaughter is quite a new term, new technology to them. However, after decades development, I think people start to understand human slaughter is not only the ethic problem, ethic consideration, it's also meat science.
Meat, yeah.
Meat science. The meat quality and the longevity of the meat depends on how animals are treated before. So if the animals are straight, stung without stunning and being killed, the meat quality is actually not good. It's not good for the human consumption too. So the attitude of human beings, their attitude to the animals and animal welfare are changing.
It's changing, yeah.
Yeah, it's changing. So I would say it is improved.
It is improving, yeah.
It's
Good.
improved. Especially when like eggs, because a lot of more egg farmers would like to transit their production system from a batch cage to cage-free system.
So it's changing slowly, it's improving slowly, and there is a real science behind it, that it's not only about the animals, it's really about humans as well. It really has an impact on what we eat. So your organization that you founded is a non-governmental organization, NGO, not-for-profit, and has been a strong driving force in Taiwan to improve the welfare of animals. In many ways. So you educate, you inform the consumers, you raise public awareness, you propose legislative amendments, etc. Yeah, there's so much you do. What do you consider to be the biggest success so far in terms of practical impact for animals?
Well, I think the so-called social movement or civil society, what we are trying to do is not an individual change, but a systematic change.
Systematic is
I would say the systematic eradication of the animal cruelty. For example, the wildlife performance in the circus. That would be a big change, right? And the definition and guideline for the egg production, blended egg production system. If this guideline and definition can be enacted or enshrined in the law, there will be systematic change.
Yeah.
So those are the system change. I would say is a big win. Big win for the environment and big win for the animals and for the consumers too.
So it's really the systematic change that has the biggest impact. Not the individual animals, but the systematic change. In terms of law, in terms of attitude,
and the policy from government.
And you're so modest because you don't tell us, but I did a little bit of research and found that you have been recognized with international awards, right? For example, the Lush prize. It's not a secret, right? I think I can
No, yeah.
talk about it. That's an international award for
Yeah, for example, even for the animal experiment.
the
yeah,
animal experiment.
If a chemical, you need to register certain chemicals with the government. But these chemicals, if the chemical, every chemical is tested by animals, then there will be a lot of animal experiments. You have to sacrifice a lot of animals. But this is a toxicity test. So if you can change this system, the registration system can say, okay, if there's an alternative, you must have used an alternative method to test a certain chemical. They will change a lot of the fate of animals. So that is some kind of a systematic change, I would say,
Right, yeah.
for the animal experiment.
So this is an excellent example for systematic change. Your organization invited an expert from the European Commission that specializes in alternatives to animal experiments, and you organized a big conference in Taiwan, which I, by the way, attended, and it was really a great conference, very interesting to learn about all the other methods that are available, instead of animals. And then you arranged a meeting with the Environmental Protection Agency in Taiwan, with the government, and the government authorities then learned about all these alternative methods, and you managed to persuade, right, the EPA.
Yes.
And so the EPA no more requires the animal testing.
Actually, they are quite academic. They are doing the toxicology test. They understand the trend in the international trend. They understand there's alternatives in the OECD guidelines. So they already trying to replace those live animal tests by different methods. But with the international support, international persuasion, or
expertise,
expertise, and the government officials would like to change, I think that is the holistic approach. Everybody doing something, then together we can change something.
Yeah.
For the animal.
So looking ahead, there are many more challenges and problems to overcome. As an NGO, you always need financial support, you have to overcome bureaucratic hurdles. But if you would be granted a wish that will come true in your lifetime, what would you wish?
I will wish a paradigm shift for our farm animal production system.
A shift.
Yeah, a shift.
A shift, yes?
Yeah,
A shift.
systematic
Paradigm
change.
shift,
Paradigm shift. Because we meet animals mostly in our table. We eat eggs, we eat meat. But generally, people don't understand how these animals are treated behind the doors on the farms. So the system change will make big difference for those animals, and they are big numbers. For example, we eat some 7 to 8 million pigs a year, some 30 million, 40 million laying hens every year. So there are big number of animals. There are long duration of animal suffering for farm animals. So any good production system change in the law, in the production, in our legislation, in the livestock act, would be make a big difference for animals. So, for example, we can eradicate live auctions, live auction of pigs and chickens, and changing the way we treat those animals will be make a big difference for animals and for our society.
We hope your wish comes true, and let's continue to fight, and each consumer has the power by making the right choice.